Hey, what's going on? Jordan Taylor here, and welcome to another episode of STARTA. I have a special guest here with me, so I wanted to welcome Afsha here.
Hi.
And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of background here. So Afsha is a seasoned financial advisor with IG Wealth. Leveraging 12 years of experience in the financial services industry, Afsha and her team manage $30 million in assets for Alberta's wealthiest. Since founding her practice in 2014, she has quickly climbed the ranks, becoming one of the top 10 IG Wealth advisors in Edmonton, Alberta. Outside of her practice, Afsha volunteers passionately on the front lines of two causes: improving the accessibility of healthcare in developing countries and increasing financial literacy for youth and other marginalized communities across Canada. Afsha, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah.
I am super excited to talk to you. We've known each other virtually for, I want to say, a little over a year, maybe?
Yeah, and this is the first time we're meeting in person.
First time meeting in person.
But it doesn't feel like it because I've talked to you quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think we've had a video chat or two as well.
Yes.
I think
We've had a couple. You've even talked to me while I was in this office, so it's amazing to have you here in this office.
Yeah, it's definitely
visiting my city.
Yeah. And Edmonton is beautiful.
I was gonna say, what's your take on it?
It's so nice. The first thought I had was actually, where are the mountains? But I realized that's not in Edmonton.
Yeah,
it's a little further out.
It's actually, I wish you got to go You just would have to drive, honestly, 3 hours south, and you'd be in the middle of the mountains. Have you ever been to the Rocky Mountains?
No. No, that's a lie. I technically I came to Calgary for a wedding when I was 5.
Right, and from
Calgary... But I don't
Calgary...
remember. I was 5.
Okay, I was going to be from Calgary you can see them.
Yes.
Right, okay.
And I think we did actually go up there for a little bit.
So what brought you to Edmonton?
So I was here helping a buddy of mine. He has a videography business, so he was filming something out here. He was filming a wedding out here.
Right.
I usually help him with the audio, and I was also shooting some behind the scenes stuff for him as well.
Okay.
Right, for his YouTube and
nice.
Instagram.
So was it spontaneous, or you had this plan for a while?
Well, the wedding got booked since COVID happened.
Right.
Right? Because I think originally they were going to go out and have it in Calgary, more in the mountainous areas.
Right. Yeah.
And then they ended up having a beautiful ceremony / reception in someone's backyard, but it was a gorgeous backyard.
Right. I can't wait. I'm going to see the footage.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So how was the flight down here? How is flying with COVID? I have not flown since March when I was in Toronto.
You know what? I never thought... I flew, same thing, once in March. I was coming back from Cuba. Well, I guess I went there first, technically.
Right.
But that was just before everything kind of happened.
Oh my gosh, okay. So that was when I was in Toronto.
Probably. This would have been the first week of March.
Yeah. So I think I was in Toronto a week after that. And then when I flew back, everything shut down. So I kind of made it right in time.
Right.
And then since then I haven't flown. So what is it like?
It's, for the most part, exactly the same, other than there's way less people.
Okay.
And... So because of that, obviously social distancing is a thing. You have to wear your mask the entire time in the airport and the entire flight.
Spaces in the seats of the flight?
Yes, they do try to keep at least one space in between people. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're flying together, then they might make that exception.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. If you're with the person already anyway.
Exactly, yeah. Like my buddy and I, we were right beside each other.
Okay. I've missed 4 trips places.
I can only imagine because I know you have your Toronto office as well.
Yeah. So I've missed 3 trips to Toronto to just work there and expand, but I've been doing it all online, which is great. But I haven't been able to go. And then I missed Colombia, Peru, and China.
Oh,
that was all in the works. Basically in April, my mission trip was going to be in Peru. And then I was going to go to Colombia from there, and all of it canceled.
So are you just going super stir crazy right now?
I thought I would be, but honestly, no. There's been such a massive shift in what I focus on, and I feel like it's allowed me to focus on the things I wouldn't have made time for because I was always on the go. So one of them is my home, where I want to be. Before it was just I came home to sleep.
Right.
And now I work from home. We're in this office probably if I just hold a staff meeting and then like a podcast like with you. But other than that, I'm working at home with my slippers and a dress shirt on. So it's like, I love it.
Just from the bottom
I'm like
up.
always, I'm just like, hey, how can I help you with your retirement today? And I'm just in my slippers and my coffee at home, but I can have lunches made at home, not like in a container coming to the office.
Exactly.
And I don't know, the commute and everything like that. I thought I'd go crazy in my office at home, but I love it. And my team is having a really hard time being like, why would we come back in? We can run our entire business virtually or online.
I think it's a very interesting turn of events because I think it's shown a lot of companies that you can do a lot of stuff remotely, which on the one hand does take away from some of the social aspect. Yeah. But on the other side, down the line could save you overhead. Yeah. Right? And
like this office is like everyone that works here is over the age of 50, right? So we didn't have DocuSign and we had paper statements, like nothing was online. So this whole thing has shifted that to like now accommodate what we want for our clients. And now I can offer my clients DocuSign and we have online statements and not everything is paper, which I have been fighting for like a year and a half. So it's like really good for our team.
Yeah. That's amazing. So now you and I have talked about this a little bit, like just like personally, but one of the things I want to do with this podcast is just to be able to bring different perspectives of what like different business-minded perspectives, right? Especially as you as like you said, someone who's not, over the age of 50 and everything else. So like, can you kind of paint the picture of where you were, say maybe like even like 10 years ago, right? Maybe like while you were in school or just before school, right? Until where you are now with, I mean, we heard the info in the bio. This is some incredible accomplishments you've been able to do. So if you could paint like the picture before and like maybe what things look like now and kind of how you've gotten there.
Yeah, sure. So 10 years ago, I was in university and I was taking psychology and mathematical sciences. So nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. My life was sort of around going to work because I had to work 15 to 20 hours and pay for school. And then I was going to university and that was my only sense of like success. Like I had to make it. I had to get good grades. If I didn't do that, I had no idea what I was going to do. You know what I mean? That was my only focus. I had no idea I would be a business owner. Like no clue. I was just taking courses that I enjoyed and it ended up being a degree. I had no plans on taking math or like fourth year calculus as something I wanted to do. And then I just was like, okay, I think this course is good, or I did well at this course. So I took the next level up. So that's me 10 years ago. And also like I socialized a lot on campus and university. So my life was just
social butterfly.
Yeah. And then I was probably one of the few people that had like a dress shirt and dress pants in my backpack because I would finish school and I would go to work and then I'd have to come home and do homework. And everyone else was like partying or doing whatever. But I remember always being like, I have to go to work after lecture. This is so, Yeah. I knew that it was just so different for me, but I'm like, there's a lot of other people that are international students that are paying like 4 times what I have to pay for school. So that was me 10 years ago.
Gotcha.
I can kind of paint a picture to getting here. So I kind of finished my degree. And then you realize, like a science degree actually doesn't have employment. Like, what are you going to do with that, right? It's a degree. So then I basically had the choice between pursuing psychology, which is what I wanted to do, and then pursuing my banking career, which is I had been doing for 5 years at that point. And so, I mean, psychology was something I had taken high-level clinical psych in, and I realized a lot of the courses are really intense, and I would take my work home. Like, it's a lot of emotional, like, I wanted to work with children who suffered through trauma and like lost their families, things like that. Yeah. And after a while, I got like an idea of what working with that and addictions and things like that in clinical psych was. And I just was like, I don't think I can do this. I know that I want to be in a position to give advice, but I don't want to pursue psychology, which is funny enough, my sister's doing that now. Oh, wow. I'm like, you're going to be great at this, but I didn't end up doing it. So I pursued my financial career, and all that really meant was I left retail banking and I started in wealth management.
Okay.
So it's like you're going from doing like checkings and savings accounts and maybe opening up a TFSA but not really knowing what that is and in branch to like I'm going to be in wealth management where people are doing projections and growing people's net worth and sort of like working with higher net worth clients. That would be the difference.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so then I started as a receptionist here. And I had no idea like what it meant or what it was. I was at the front where you came in, and I would just greet clients, and it was like I went from being, you know, a teller advisor to that. And then I graduated and I quit the receptionist role and I came back and started my practice.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's so interesting to hear go from like, okay, yeah, I'm just kind of, you know, not necessarily going through the motions, but just kind of like, I'm not really sure where this is going to go.
Like I had no idea.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the case for so many business owners is it doesn't always start like, I am going to own a business doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It's more like, okay, this is kind of the field that I'm in, and then things kind of just evolve,
it's like, you always hear people who are doing really well, like, oh, you know what, I knew at the age of 5, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, I didn't know what I wanted to do at the age of 18, like, let alone at the age of 5. So if someone was like, what do you want to be? I had no idea. And then at some point in university, I was like, I'm going to be a psychologist. This is what my calling is. I want to be able to help people, and I understand the human mind and behavior, and I find it fascinating. And at that time, psychology was not an accepted field. Mental health wasn't a thing 10 years ago. It's such a widely misunderstood field now, but it's being talked about. 10 years ago, it wasn't. Like when I went into psychology, I remember there was a comment being made like, you're not going to ever be anything. And it was like, because I picked the field of psychology over engineering.
Right. Wow. So now, you kind of painted the picture before, like a typical day.
Yes.
Right? 10 years ago, in school, go to school, go to work, come home, do homework, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
Right?
And then like procrastinate.
Yeah.
And then, oh yeah,
as
I gotta
most
do
students
this.
do. Heck, even some adults, we still do it.
Exactly, yeah.
So what would you say, now that you've kind of made this shift into like, you know, business owner, wealth manager, if we can say that, or financial advisor, what would you say let's say a typical day looks like for you now versus then?
I mean, a typical day now starts with like my my mental and my body, right? It's just like my mind and my physical health is one of the biggest things I'm focusing on. And then my business is structured around working in the business with my marketing team, or on the business with my marketing team, and then in the business with my advisory team.
Gotcha.
That's my whole day.
And how big is your total team now?
We're a team of 6 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
So you met 2.
Yeah.
How does it feel? It's they're big shoes to fill.
Right.
I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that I can, you know, lead a team and be that inspiration for them. But you really have to stay on top of your game, because you're now responsible for, you know, other people being able to fulfill what they want, right? You have to provide that room and space for them. You got to lift that ceiling. Like it's not like I'm the reason that they're going to be inspired. They have that on their own. I have a great team behind me, but you're responsible for making sure that they have that space. You know what I mean? Like if they want to work towards something, they want to say something in the boardroom, they want to say something in the staff meeting, they want to bring up an idea, like you have to be able to provide that space, even if it goes against whatever you were working on that day, or it's in addition to and it was unplanned for. You have to make that space for them. And then you also have to make sure that you're valuing each person for their completely different roles. And then you also have to make sure that you're individually meeting with each employee and saying, like, what do you want? Like, we had to do, one of my staff meetings was, we did a love language quiz. And everyone's like, oh, isn't this for like relationships and things? And I'm like, how do you think you're going to work with someone for 8 to 10 hours in a day? Every day, we're going to see each other more than anybody else. And if we don't have a good team culture, how do you think we're going to be top 10 or number 1 in the city?
Exactly.
Right? So we did a love language like quiz, and we went through everything on like, how do you feel appreciated? What do you like? Like, is it words of affirmation? Is it physical touch? I was like, physical touch we could try, but you know, like which category are you? And like, how do I appreciate you? Because I could constantly tell you, hey, you're doing well. And maybe someone's you know, their love language is like, I just love if you brought me a coffee, or you thought of me one day and did some sort of act of service. And that's important. There's none to judge, but if I don't know that, how do I keep making sure that my team is taken care of and that they feel appreciated and valued? That is my number one focus, above marketing, above even my clients. Because if my team is not doing well, how are we going to service our clients?
Exactly.
So.
And I think that's great, because I think, well, it's my first time hearing of like someone at the, you know, at the head of the business owner, the person kind of overseeing everything, thinking about the like the real interpersonal relationships amongst everybody, not just as, okay, yeah, I got to make sure that my people are okay and whatever, but very like invested in making sure people feel fulfilled.
It's so important. And that's, you know what, I haven't probably interviewed people like you have, so I don't know that that's rare. I don't know how you can run a business without caring about that.
Yeah, I think it's just like when I think of, like you said, the maybe like previous generations, people who would be leading people or leading a business, I'll say, is that it was about more so the bottom line and the numbers, and it's not. I'm sure that is still very much an important thing. Yeah. But it was just like how there's more conversations about people's mental health. There's more conversations about people's emotional well-being. Yes. Right. Yeah. That is more prominent. I don't know if it's our generation, if it's just.
You're right. I agree.
You know, having more conversations like that. Yeah. That makes you more aware, and you're like, well, I can't, in good consciousness, not, you know, act accordingly when it comes to running my business and trying to lead my people.
It's definitely like that, because retention rate is very low in this industry. Like the first person I ever hired has now been with me for 6 years. So that's very rare. Like, I don't know if there's anyone in this office that's had somebody for longer than that in one period of time, like their first assistant to stay that long. So you're right. It is something that when people ask me how I have a team like this, I talk about. I'm like, what do you do to invest in your team? Like, what do you do to make them feel appreciated? How do you make sure their careers are expanding? Like, do you have someone that's in the same role? It's fine if their title doesn't change, because maybe you're not trying to have a 6-person team or an 8-person team. Maybe you just want to be 2 or 3. But how do they expand? Like, do you give them more responsibilities? Where's the creativity in it? Exactly. You're going to exhaust them if they don't get to speak their mind. And also, like, how are you going to, like, evolve your team? The world is evolving. If you don't catch up with it and you don't take on new ideas, you're basically living in the past. Like, you're the grandpa without a checking account.
Absolutely.
Right? So, yeah, I agree with you. It's totally missing. And honestly, I'm thankful for working with people who are 60 plus, because I got to see what they don't do. Right. And I'm like, I don't ever want to be like that. I mean, I'm inspired by them too. I get to learn what they do that I want.
Learning experience both ways.
But I can also be like, that's what I want to focus on that I think is missing. And it's working right now, so.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, because like, even to think, like you said, being able to learn from people who have done this previously, right? And looking at, okay, I love what they did with this side of things. Yes. But I feel like there's a gap here, and you can kind of fill that gap, and then it helps you, like, I don't want to say do it better, but do it in a way that's more in line with, like,
and also just like knowing that I'm not always doing it better. I think the fact that I have this humility to understand that I don't know how to do it better, I'm always asking them, like, what do you want in a work environment? What's important to you? I'm reading articles on LinkedIn. Like, half the time I'm sharing things that it's like how to be a better leader. It's not just client service or financial service oriented. It's about being a better leader, and all of it's about accountability. Like, having good employees is not making sure your employees are great. I mean, I have that. So now it's on me to make sure that greatness can come out.
Yeah. And also, I think what it sounds like, that you want your team to be fulfilled, right? And happy to be here, as opposed to, oh, I have to work here.
Yeah. One of the things that my marketing coordinator makes are PowerPoint slides for every staff meeting that we hold. And the first thing, anytime we're welcoming a team member, she puts, welcome to our family.
I love that.
And, I always say, like, we aren't a family business, but we run our family like a business. Right. So, I mean, that's just our first and foremost. So to answer your question, like, we kind of, derailed, but that's kind of my focus right now is with my team. My day-to-day looks like working on the business, because we do have clients. I have over 300 people that we manage. We have a $30 million, wealth management firm that we do have to service, and we have to expand and grow. And we always have all these goals that we set, and there is a number that we're trying to get to. Like, our year to date is 20 million. That's our goal. We're ahead of, our year to date next year will be 20 million. Our year to date this year is 12 million, and we're ahead of it. Right. And I'm training 2 members while we're doing it. So it's like, to say that it's just business oriented would be completely failing the part that matters, which is also my team. So it's working in the business, which is with my employees, with my clients, making sure that we're hitting those goals. And then on the business is the marketing side, and like making sure my team is feeling fulfilled.
So what would you, like with all of that, thinking of, and this is coming from me not working in this particular industry.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So my brain goes to, and this is probably why you're doing this and not me, is my brain goes to not only the size of the, I guess, asset pool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The size of the asset pool, the team growing and expanding, and like you said, and keeping like mental and physical health intact. It's like, how do you juggle it all? And I hope
calendar. I've said exactly what you just said out loud in a team meeting. First of all, the vulnerability to say that, like to have that
That's
power
huge.
to be like, guys, how are we going to do this? I mean, we've had conversations around, one of my assistants who does my schedule brought it up and was like, okay, guys, we got to respect her calendar. There's a human being running this. Because I don't do my calendar. They book all the
Yes.
meetings.
Yeah.
So I'm going from like meeting a client that has $1.5 million and completely engrossed in them. They have me one-on-one. There is no one else in that room. And then I'm switching to, okay, training our newest hire, our admin assistant, on the practices of this world. And then I'm doing a podcast because I've done a couple, just this month.
Yeah.
And then I'm switching to making sure that my associate who actually builds the financial plans is getting the financial concepts encrypted into the plan for the client. So the recommendations of the entire proposal. So
Right.
I'm constantly switching what part of my brain or what type of like skill set I have in
Yeah.
order to keep it going. And then I'm meeting my marketing team being like, what is our focus? How are we getting high net worth clients? Like, what are we sharing? How are we going to provide value to the outside world? So
Yeah.
how do I do all that? It's a calendar. And deciding what percentage of my calendar is going to be on the business and in the business. So if it's 50-50, then my calendar has to portray that. So you don't know. Basically on a weekly basis, our team pulls up my calendar and says, the team's focus this week, this month is this. This is how much Afsha's going to work on the business, and this is how much she's going to do in the business. You get my time here and here, so we'll do like a reoccurring meeting, let's say with one employee once a week to make sure they're on track. And then I have like performance reports like every month and then every 3 months for people who are new. And then eventually we just all become like, we always call ourselves this well-oiled machine. We're like,
Yeah.
and like we
that's
have
what
these
it is.
ridiculous things where we're just be like, we have a successful thing where everyone on the team was involved and it just worked like that well-oiled machine, and someone will call out in the boardroom like, when I say team, and everyone else is like, work.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And so we just do things like that. But to answer your question, how I manage it, I could not do it without a team. I seriously would be nowhere without them. And, I have my mindset and my ideas, but taking your ideas and making it work and having an action plan, that's my team.
Yeah, that's honestly great, because I think, and to people who watch and listen to these episodes, I think it's the making that shift from, I have the ideas in my head. Mm-hmm. How do I get them out, and how do I execute on them?
Yes.
Right. And like you said, being very grateful for the team that you have as well, right?
Yeah.
And obviously this is expanded over the last X number of years, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you, even something as simple as, if you're running your well-oiled machine, right?
Yes.
Probably all the time, thinking about all the different aspects of it all the time. Mm-hmm. And then, to bring it back to like you said, like everything evolving and stuff, and then getting into like social media marketing via something like TikTok.
Yeah.
Right? And then, because that's a whole different creative brain.
Yeah, and then YouTube.
To be pointing at all the little things.
Yeah,
Because I know
learning
TikTok
it.
has the point.
And I am definitely not Gen Z, so I am like learning at like way slower speeds than some of these kids that are crazy on there. But you put effort into what matters to you.
Absolutely.
People will always say they don't have time, but you'll put time into things that matter. And I don't want anyone listening to this to think that I promote hustle culture. Okay, I do not work weekends.
I'm so excited to hear where you're going with this.
My
Yes.
weekends are off. Like, my team does not get me Saturday and Sunday. My family does. That is my first and foremost rule. Everyone knows. If I ever have to work on a Sunday or like something, it's not like a good time. Like, I really respect my employees' time off, and I respect my time off. And if I don't respect my time, this is something that I'm just recently learning. I actually wrote it at the top of my journal, which is I don't respect my own time. Because what was happening is I was saying yes to everybody that needed my time. If an employee needed help, if someone needed extra training, I took it on, and I wasn't realizing that I was just like working through you know, what was scheduled as a lunch break or a coffee break.
Like your time.
It was like I was at the desk. So, I mean, one of the things that I had to start doing was we had a team meeting and I said, okay, guys, so when there's actually time off, if it's the week of, you can't book something in without running it by me. You have complete control of my calendar. These are my preferences. Like, I don't like working Fridays. Don't book anything after 2. Like, I like to work. I take, you know, Friday afternoon off all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't want to promote hustle culture because I cannot be the person I am if I don't take time to myself. I cannot inspire my team, motivate my team, take care of them, or acknowledge their accomplishments if I'm not taking the time off that I need for myself. So, I mean, sometimes in the middle of the day, I'm like, I have to go for a run. This is the only time I'm going to get to go. I got to go. So there's so many times where my team's in the middle of a project and I like put on some shorts, get out of my clothes, and I go for that run, right? And then I come back half an hour later because I'm like, if I don't do this now, I know in the evening I have this, and this. And you got to fit those things and respect it, even though the type of person I am is I always want to do that next meeting. Like if a client comes in and is like, hey, I have this amount of money, I need help with this plan. I'm like, sure, I'll meet you tomorrow. Like in my mind, I just want to meet them and help them right away.
Get the ball rolling.
But I have to train myself to be like, actually, my first meeting that's available, that's an opening, is 3 weeks from now. That has been such a
almost
struggle for me.
Not natural response.
It's not. Like, I always just, I'm like, sure, tomorrow. Yeah, whatever. Like, anything you need. Of course I'm going to help you. This is what because in the beginning, you were dying for those meetings.
Absolutely.
Like, you were just, oh my God, I wish someone could see that I could help them, that I know I have all this knowledge, I can build this whole path for them. Every single person needs a financial plan. If you earn $1, you need one. I don't care if you're 16 or you're 75 and already retired. You need a plan.
Absolutely.
And there's all these working parts, right? I just had to start valuing my own time off. And then when I'm on, like when I'm in my calendar for work, then it's like my focus is only what's right in front of me. So a lot of the times my team has to give me reminders that like most people are on top of. I suck at it. Like time management is something that I have to work to be good at.
Mindful of.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's like, hey, just a heads up, like it's 2:30, you have a thing in 15 minutes. They would have told me in the morning that I had that, but I'm so focused on the person that's in front of me at that time, I have no concept of what's happening next. And then the minute they'll come in, they'll barge. It's a client, it's like, hey, just so you know, 15 minutes, Kate, the client's here, I got a shift. Everyone moves, people get into their spots, and then I'm like, Kate, my mindset shift, whoever's in front of me next gets me. And that's how I make it work.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far and are finding it valuable. If you're curious on how to create content like this, or any kind of video content, either for yourself or as a service to others, I want to give you access to my video editing course, Editing Enhanced. This course is designed to help you get better at editing video content and to take your video editing skills to the next level. Whether you're a complete beginner and just need to understand the basics, or you're pretty confident with editing and want to take things up a notch, this course will have lots for you to take advantage of. Now, there may or may not be a discount code in the description and show notes for this episode, so be sure to have a look out for that and head on over to starta.ca/editing enhanced to get access to the course. Now let's get back to the rest of this episode.
I literally had to make my own calendar for my personal time. I might not need to do this. I'm just doing this right now because I'm like learning I don't know how to respect my own time. And eventually it'll become a natural thing and I'll move on to the next thing I need to focus on, right?
Yeah, because it's all a personal growth thing. Just like like you said, the business evolves, you evolve, just like your team says.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, our focus this week, this month, this quarter is going to be X. Right? You have to do the same thing on yourself, just like you would do that in your, like, maybe your coaching conversations with your team members as well. Yeah. Right? You said something earlier that I really want to focus on because I feel there are very few people who have this perspective, especially young, entrepreneurial minded people, of not getting caught up in the hustle culture.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that.
I think the word hustle, and I get this from one of my business mentors, his name is Graham Cochran, and he always talks about, if you look at the actual nature of the word hustle, it's not a good thing. Yeah. Right? But also what it means, like, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur and all of that, there's a side of it that absolutely makes sense, right? You work hard and you make sacrifices in the front end to have more long-term success. But there's this like you said, this hustle culture of I gotta be working on or in my business 24/7.
Yeah.
I can't have a life. I gotta let this stuff go, because it's
Yeah.
all about the growth, and you're just constantly running.
Like, what I'll do is I'll quickly just insert my tidbit with, you mentioned, I'll make these sacrifices now so I can have this later. I don't see my life as making sacrifices.
Yeah.
Nothing I do is a sacrifice. Everything I do is an absolute blessing. I love what I do. So I'm not really working hard now so I can have something later. Like, yeah, that's the goal, but that's not what gets me up every day. It's not like I'm just going to do this right now so later on I can have this. Like, you really have to enjoy what you do. And there's going to be parts of your job that you don't like. Okay?
Absolutely.
There are parts of my job that I'm like, I really have to do this, and I'm still doing it even though I have a team working for me. That's my role. I got to take that responsibility. So there's going to be things you don't want to do, but overall, your why and like your mission of what you're doing has to be something that you believe in so that it doesn't seem like a sacrifice.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by hustle culture. I work my, ass off, but I don't work at like on the Saturdays, like that I want to be with my family.
Right.
So that's the part where I'm saying, like, you work hard. This is the thing. It's not that. It's work smart, not hard.
Yes.
And I mean, people say that all the time. What does that mean? Because you got to learn, you got to work hard, learn what being smart is, and then go. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to always just regurgitate the same thing we see in memes all the time.
Sure.
I want to actually go expand on that. Like, what does work smart, not hard mean? It means the time where you can do that extra file, but you should take that time off, do it. When you start to realize that I don't have any personal time, stop valuing the next deal that you have in front of you. Like, your client's going to understand that you're delivering a plan in 3 weeks and not 1 week if you just tell them. Like, hey, you can expect to hear from me in 3 weeks. My team will get back to you. We'll have a proposal, and you're going to be good to go. Like, the immediate concerns will be taken care of. I'm not going to, like, if there's something, obviously, that has a time constraint for their finances, like you got to do a deposit, it's RSP season, whatever it is, a tax deduction, of course, like I'm going to do that right away, but you don't need an entire client proposal to happen that very minute. And that's the type of mindset I had to make it. I was like, got to bring in everything and do everything. And I was at this office, like this very office, I didn't sit here, I was in the bullpen, and I would turn off the light at like 2 a.m. and I'd be like, what I guess this is what it's going to be like. And I would ask my mentors, like, so what's it like when you're 50? Do you still do this? Like, do we just do this for the rest of our lives? Like, I actually said, I was like, is this like having a kid? Like, it doesn't go away.
Right.
Like, you have a kid and all you hear is like, it doesn't go away. I'm like, well, this business isn't going away. I'm just expanding and growing. So at what point do I get to stop working at 2 a.m.? Or is it that you hire people and now you're just doing more but still working till 2 a.m.? And that was my line. I was like, I do not get to hire people. We did it in the beginning and then still do exactly what is going to exhaust you and burn you out.
Right.
I cannot stress how much you should take care of your mind and your mental health above and beyond anything else that you put your hand to. And I see so many entrepreneurs, successful people, my friends that are doing so well, that are like, oh, vacation will be for me in 10 years. I'm like, I don't care what your vacation is. I don't care if it's a beach, being at home with your family, or something away from work, but it's got to be something where you're giving your mind a break.
Yeah.
So that you can
absolutely.
come back like refreshed and recharged. People don't value that enough. They just think, and like our parents did this, right? Like our parents are new immigrants. They just work and work and work. And who gets to think about mental health or take a break?
Right.
So it's like infused in us to, we're conditioned to believe that that's what success means. And do people work hard? Do you hear successful people waking up at 4 a.m. and doing all these things? Yeah. But like they also know their time out. Waking up 4 a.m. didn't mean that they started checking their emails.
Right, exactly.
Waking up at 4 a.m. means you're meditating, you're reading a book, you're taking personal time to yourself.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's interesting you bring up the immigrant parent angle, because I think it's exactly that. It's the grind that they had to go through, albeit very hardworking. Yeah. It was different in the sense of, like you said, like the mental health awareness was not necessarily as prominent at that time.
And I don't blame them at all.
And it's like, you don't know what you don't know, right? Yeah. And it wasn't, they weren't conversations that were happening. Yeah. Right?
And if you, like, out of respect for them, like, we can acknowledge our grandparents, like my grandparents come from a war. Right? And then my parents are just adjusting from that war and understanding that they don't have to live in this war, but there were still sirens going off. There was still some sort of turmoil. And then they moved to a new country where they didn't even know the language and they had to figure it all out. So like that's all they knew to do, and I respect that, but we're not in that position. We are in this position because of them, most of us.
Yeah.
And so then why are we doing the same thing when we can be better? Right? Now we can hustle, but we can take time off. So why would you not use that privilege?
Absolutely.
Like, people don't take their privilege and understand, like, you can go to the mountains. I can go down south, drive for 2 hours, be in the mountains, get that fresh air that I need, and come back Monday. And in the beginning, when I was doing Instagram and I was online all the time, I wasn't showing that. I was also learning that I had to do that. This isn't something that I just knew from the get-go. Like, oh yeah, I started my first year and I knew exactly when to take my time off and when to work and all these things. My not working weekends stemmed from the hatred of having to work on the weekends when I was in post-secondary.
Yeah.
That I took every weekend shift. I never had Saturdays off. I was like, my Friday night meant going out and waking up in the morning, putting on my dress clothes, going to work. So when I started here, I was like, the one thing I'm not doing is working weekends. Like, I refuse to work.
Absolutely.
You know, but I mean, over time you learn that you're not just making decisions on your calendar and what you should be focusing on based on what you know, the emotional side of it, that I don't want to do it. It's like, no, this is healthy for me and I need to value that above and anything else.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's very refreshing to hear someone who is doing, well, clearly is doing many things right? But also, like, really truly developing your own perspective, your own kind of philosophy.
Yeah.
Right?
There's no manual.
That isn't, like you said, that is not regurgitating the stuff we see in memes because it sounds great.
Yeah,
right?
it does.
Like, I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of thing.
Oh,
right? And there's people who I know entrepreneurs who go like that, and there's nothing wrong with working until 2 a.m, but you need to, like you said, recharge, refill your cup.
Like, there's people who do that and are so successful, and I admire them, but it's not for me. Right. And I need to be that voice that says that. Because it's like, what about the other people that are like me? What about the other people who can be successful and experience success and understand? Honestly, I think about longevity when it comes to that. I'm just like, I don't want to be 60 and in pain. Like, I might be more successful now and, you know, like, I'd be a year or two ahead of my time because I did that hustle thing where I didn't take breaks. But, like, am I going to have this crash when I'm 40? That's the things I hear, right? I listen to podcasts of people, the greats, and it's just like, yeah, I was doing all these things, then I had a health scare and I was in the hospital and I had to take 2 weeks off work and my family was all this, and I'm like, okay, so here's what we don't do. We don't
this
work.
This is what we're not gonna do.
Exactly. So I don't know, like, I don't know what I'm doing is right. All I can do is share what I am doing, because you're asking what I'm doing with my life right now. What am I part of? I've experienced a bit of success, sure, but I still feel like I'm just getting started. I still feel like I'm just hitting the ground running. I'm starting to understand what I need and what I don't need, what my team wants, what I need to focus on. So you might ask me this in a year and it'll be completely different, because now, you know, as I was saying, that personal time isn't something I have to focus on because it just becomes natural. And now there's something else I got to focus on, right? So all I can do is share what I'm actually doing at the time.
What's working.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You said something earlier that I wanted to kind of touch on. You spoke about knowing your why, knowing your kind of what is your mission, right? So what would you say is your biggest why? What gets you up in the morning? I guess, what would you say is, I mean, not necessarily your business's mission statement, but what would you say is, like, Afsha's mission statement, like, you personally?
Absolutely. I love that you said that, personally, because I'm more than an advisor.
Right. Because that's going to, it will trickle into your business, sure, but it's also going to trickle into how you are with your family, with your friends.
Right. I would say that what gets me up in the morning and what my mission statement is, I'm actually going to share this with you in a second, but so my mission statement is, like, the mindset that I've built over the past, let's say, 10 years of my life. Not just since owning a business, but the undergrad experience I have, the working while I went to school, and then that, like, the mindset I've built around it, I want to share that with everyone around me. Like, I started my Instagram being like, there's so much more about my life than just going to work and going home. and trying to create this successful business. I'm traveling and I'm gaining all these experiences, and I have a mindset shift around that. I'm realizing the privilege we have just for like the English language. There's so much more than, you know, to a person. We're dynamic human beings. Now, how do I take that mindset and like get a bunch of people to hear? Like, how do you get a room of 20,000 people? Like, maybe that's eventually a goal, but how you do that is on a platform. And so my platform that I chose was Instagram, because at the time that was a thing. And like now it's TikTok and all these other YouTube and stuff I'm learning. But my mission is to take the mindset that I've built and learned and the perspective that I've gained and give that to everybody else.
Yeah. So it's really like passing on those lessons, passing on that, I guess, gained experience, gained perspective.
Yeah, and it's like sharing my struggle as they happen. I have to get so much better as giving like live feedback. Like a lot of stuff I've said in this podcast with you is like my last month.
Oh wow.
Right? Like this is recent, like I don't respect my own time, written on the top of my journal, right? Or I gotta go for a run, and that needs to be priority in my calendar the way that I do a client meeting. That didn't exist before July 2020.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Do you have any buddy in your life that like you find yourself constantly going to for not necessarily specific advice, but someone who you look to just kind of, you know, center yourself a little bit and be like, I see what this person is doing, and it still inspires me to keep doing me the way that I'm doing me, not necessarily the way that they're doing it.
Yeah, but just something that you look up to as a mentor, let's say.
Yeah.
So I say this a lot. My friends know this too. I see my life as like me and my cohort of 10. And I'm just saying 10. I could count them and speak like how many, but it's not more than 10 people in my life. Yeah. And it's my family, my friends, and my team. And like, you know, my friends can be different ages. Like it could be a 50-year-old, someone I look up to. It could be a 23-year-old just starting out that has a different vision that I can learn from. A lot of people think like your mentors have to be older people, and it's not. Your influences can be people who are younger, who have this like mindset that you just don't have because you didn't grow up in the same time as them. Right. And so I wouldn't say there's any one particular person. There's a couple individuals that I'm like, they are such a monumental part of my growth, and I turn to them for sure. And it's not always just because like, hey, what do I do for my business? Sometimes it's like how to take a break, how to cut myself some slack if I mess up or I do something wrong. Like I go to people, and a lot of the times I find my friends and my family saying the same thing. Like, you can't always be going so hard all the time.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this is starting to become a pattern. People are saying that, you know, like something more recently, one of my friends did that was so good for me. He was like, he saw that I had to record this podcast. I got my period that day. Mine are terrible. I have these like ridiculous cramps. I like every month I have to take painkillers, and like women don't talk about it. It's super uncomfortable. It's like a taboo topic. We don't acknowledge it. You just got to grit through the pain. And I hate that. I'm like, you need to listen to your body. And I've said this to him enough times that I'm struggling that he actually was just like, okay, you need to actually take time off. Like you need to start planning it in your schedule. And he has no concept of like what I'm going through, but what's happening is that I have friends in my life, mentors and people I look up to, who aren't afraid to tell me that it's great what you're doing, but you need to work on this or take this off or whatever. And it's not always aspects. Like, it's not always motivating you to do better and more. It's actually sometimes for me how to like relax. So I went into my calendar that day, and I actually just next month have it like, because not every woman can time theirs. I'm pretty lucky. So for mine, it's like next month, just don't make my schedule heavy. Like that is so, I don't know how else to like be more real with people. It's just like learn when you need a break and take time off. And those people that you reach out to who are telling you things, like I always say, be careful who you take advice from. But I take it from like, 10 people that I'm close to. So I would say, like I have mentors that I look up to, that I turn to, and a lot of the times it's how to navigate a busy schedule. It's how to navigate taking time off. It's not necessarily like the financial part. I feel like that part's very easy for me. I say my degree had nothing to do with what I do, but I did numbers and I learned human behavior. So I'm really good at being an advisor. But it's like you could be the best financial advisor in the world and the worst business owner.
Yeah, like even I've seen people who are great in one particular area, right? And even going back to like talking about the balancing everything, right? Like people who are great in the business sense, right? And when it comes to managing their personal life, whether it's their mental health, whether it's interpersonal relationships, not good at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So successful in one area does not necessarily equal successful
it
in
doesn't.
another.
And that's when someone says, what's your goal? I'm like, I want to focus on every area of my life that's important. And so when it feels like a lot, or like, how are you also going for runs and running a business? I'm like, you have to value both. You cannot only focus on your business and then crash and burn and then you don't have your health. What was the point of building all of that if you don't have your health? Right? Like you see people like, as you know, like Chadwick dying at 43 years old. It's like, it's like heartbreaking and so sad. And it's like, if that doesn't remind you that you can accomplish and do all these amazing things, but without your health, like you won't have your life past that, right? Like whatever you can do. I mean, what's going to happen is going to happen, right? Whatever disease we catch at some point, like, but there's things you can do around that, and that's valuing your health as much as you value that next deal that you're going to land. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I had no idea this is what we would be talking about, but I'm just like, you're asking these questions, I'm like, I'm just going to be honest because this is what I'm focusing on right now.
No,
like,
and I love it because it's and this is one of the things that I'm learning through doing more of these conversations like this, is that as much as, you know, I know that there are people watching and listening who want to know, okay, how do I get to where this person's at? How can I shift my mindset? How can I grow? But it's also like, I really value conversations like this because it really gives an insight to, especially when someone is open, as you are being, is you get to see, okay, what does this person genuinely care about outside of, yes, I want to be successful, I want to land the deals and all of that, but it's like, what do we really think of, like, day in, day out? What's truly on our mind? Like, what is actually keeping the wheels turning? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like, when you said, okay, what gets you out of bed, or, like, what's that thing in your why? And I'm, like, you know, sharing my mindset with the world. It's like, I always have ideas. I'm the idea person, right? So if I am constantly going after those ideas, I also have to know when to take a break, because I'm not kidding you. Like, I'll have an idea in the shower. I'll be going to bed and I'm like, oh, I got to write this in my notes.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, you should be, you know, like, honing in on like what your talent and what your skill set is. But I'm just realizing more of recently that it's not just about making it in business. It's about your health and caring about your physical health, and it's also about prioritizing your family and all these things that matter, that I'm hearing 40 and 50-year-olds saying they didn't get to do.
They didn't make that a priority.
Yeah.
Right? That it's something like, oh yeah, it'll be nice once I get around to it, but it's like,
or like they just regret. There's regret. Like, there is really true regret that, like, I did not get to spend time with my kids. And this is why I can't stress enough, like, your mentors or your influences in your life should be different age groups. Like, you should have someone who's 19 giving you ideas. I have, you know, my team, like, there's people that are, like, very young, but they're so crucial on my team because they give me these ideas and this, like, outlook on what's to come. That's going to be our future. Whatever the way they think, their mindset, like whatever Gen Z is doing right now, that's our future. So why are we not learning, right? And then I also have like the wisdom of someone who's, you know, in their 50s or their 60s saying like, don't do this, kid. You know, like, I did these things, don't do it. And one of the biggest things that I hear from people in their 50s and 60s is like, spend time with your kids. Spend time with your family, spend time with those people important to you. So, like, I have 2 or 3 people that are my go-to. Something happens, I turn. I'm more recently learning how to ask for help. I did not know how to do that.
Yeah.
At all.
That's a tough thing, especially for, like, people.
You're supposed to have it figured out. You're successful. You want to be seen, and it's such a, like, act, right? And I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, if you think you figured out everything because you're successful, you've stopped growing.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, what's the expression? He who thinks he knows everything knows nothing at all, or some variation of that.
Exactly. The minute, and I said this in one of my other podcasts, it's like the minute you think that you know everything is the minute that you've stopped growing. And I cannot stress that enough. So it's like everything's a work in progress. Everything, I think it's really important to like understand there's a power in vulnerability. If I truly want to shift, you know, people's mindsets and their perspectives, I have to give them like the deep and heavy stuff. I can't just be like, oh, you know what? I hit the goal of 12 million and my team's ahead of it. that does nothing for people other than being like, cool, she's successful. You're one, you know what I mean?
At
like,
most, it's that what they say. They'll say like inspo, business inspo.
Yeah, and
right?
I mean that's good and important that someone that looks like me or you can talk about what we've done for other people to relate, being like, it's possible. But that's really all it serves if you don't get deeper and say, this is how we did it. You're not paving a pathway for people to understand how you get there.
Yeah, because then the especially too with the younger generations, right? They're looking to be like, okay, well, that's what I have to do.
Yes.
I don't know how to get there, but I have to get there because if I don't, I'm not worth anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And then it gets to be a very slippery slope.
And another thing I want everyone to like that's listening to this to understand, if I can like leave them with it, is not having patience. I did not have any, and I still struggle with it, right? It's like the patience to like know it's coming. You've built a system, you have a process, it's going to work. And it's not going to happen in your first year, and it might take you 3 years, it might take you 10 years. The whole point is if you keep going and you keep building, it's going to happen. I mean, honestly, I'll even say on the marketing side, like there was a time where I was like, how does someone ever just get on a podcast? How do they talk about what their growth is? And now I've done like 4 podcasts in the last month. But people are seeing that finished product. I'm like, first of all, I'm not even a finished product. I'm constantly learning. But like, how did I get to this thing that you think I just always was? That's not true, right?
Yeah.
So it's like understanding that like if you build a system and you constantly work towards it and you take the time off that you need, you're going to get to where you want to.
Yeah.
You just have to stop putting a timeline on it.
Yeah, because things happen.
Yeah.
There's so many things that are outside of our control.
Especially with COVID. Like if I could stress that not enough, how many people are not graduating because of this?
Exactly.
Right? It's not just, they're graduating and didn't have a graduation. I mean like university students not getting into school because class sizes are now 12 instead of 300 because of how it works. And they're struggling with like, I'm already a year late. I was supposed to do this with my life. I was supposed to travel for a year. I mean, that's the thing, right? You graduate, you travel for a year. You can't do any of that. You're not graduating, you can't travel. Now what? Those were the 2 like whys of why you did things.
Exactly.
So it's called patience. It's like you have to sort of build a system, start developing and working on things that you didn't have the time to work on before. And we say that all the time. I could be more specific if you want. It depends on the time that we have today. But I want everyone to leave listening to this like with things to ponder.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
absolutely.
she said this, something to think about, right? Maybe my advice doesn't work for everybody, but I would say that the one thing that I can say that everyone could value is having patience to understand that if you are working towards something, there's going to be something that comes out of it. It's never work done in vain. Whether it's an experience, a learning struggle, whether it's landing a big deal eventually, but your first few times you did it didn't work. Understanding that you're just going to get better and better at what you're doing and it's going to come.
That's amazing. I feel like that's like the epitome of, that's like the penultimate response right there.
Oh, thank you.
So we'll end off with, is there anything apart from the very substantial message that you just gave?
That's my end. That's it. You don't get any more.
That's it. And I think I did mention this before. These episodes I try to again, talking about systems, right? I try to actually film 1 season in kind of like in a however much time it takes me to do that,
right?
And then I put out that season at once, so it's like I know that it's working for me, as opposed to, okay, I got one thing, put it out, another one, put it out,
right? And that's your system, and that works for you, and you know that maybe that one time you put it out, you're not going to get all the traction you want or everything you ever dreamed of, but it's working for you. Exactly.
And it's that knowing that there's a process, so that way as I'm putting it out, I'm not running around to put it out. Yes. I know it's like, now that it's out, it's coming out on autopilot, it's marketing itself, it's doing everything. I can take that time to kind of like reset, refresh, rejuvenate, and all of that. Oh, that's amazing, yeah. So that being said, it may be a little bit of time before this episode airs, but I was going to ask, is there anything that you wanted to plug, anything that you want to, like anything specific you want to call out, whether it's a virtual event. I say virtual because almost all events are virtual now.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if there's anywhere you'd like to redirect listeners to go to? Yeah, I would. Actually, you know what? A lot of this podcast has been around like mindset and entrepreneurship and business owner and like how do you get started, but
something that I do that has nothing to do with any of this is my sister and I's YouTube. It's actually something
so amazing.
It's thank you.
I love it so much.
It's honestly the only initiative that her and I have been able to take on together. And honestly, I think about the main intention behind it is so great. But to me personally, what it means is like, I get to have this with my sister. Like, no matter what, if I die tomorrow, I got to have these moments where I recorded videos with my sister and we had a blast doing it and we made a difference and we, you know, took another young woman or young man or someone listening to it and changed their perspective, and like the feedback we get is absolutely great. So like, if you want to listen to something that has to do with social justice, like racism, sexism, like there's so many things to learn. If you want to learn about privilege and you want to understand like what people like us deal with and how we grow up, whether it's through comedy or just conversations between us and understanding who we are, go to our YouTube, because my Instagram and my TikTok, they're very different. Like a lot of the times you're going to get financial information and I a lot of the times realize that the financial literacy in this world is very poor. So then a lot of my posts are based around financial education, but our YouTube isn't something I promote at all and talk about, but it's actually really, really important to me. And it's like one of my passion projects. And I feel like this would be the perfect time to say like, it's Umber and Afsha, just our names. Perfect. So Amber, but with a U. So gotcha. Umber and Afsha, my name, Afsha. And honestly, like, yeah, go check it out. Leave your feedback, like have your comments. Everything that people say to us means the world. So that would be the one thing that I'd want to redirect people towards. It's not necessarily my business page or my finance page or all those things that are getting a lot of traction. It's the side passion project that actually like encompasses who I really am, because we get to talk about everything but finance. So then you really get to know like how someone's mind works and how they get really far. It's by actually appreciating and exploring all these other realms of like topics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be sure to link it in the show notes.
Thank you.
In the description.
So you've seen it then? You've seen it?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
I've seen, and I like how, like you said, you have where it's just conversations between you and your sister and about, like you said, racism, sexism, issues of privilege and all of that. But then there's also sometimes where it is presented like very serious, more like conversational, and then other times where it's presented in hilarious comedy, which I love. You guys should definitely watch it. You guys started that this year? Yeah.
That's actually one of the things that came out as a result of like within COVID, we started. I don't even know the month that we let our first one out.
I remember watching it.
It's very new. Like
it was,
we just started.
I think it was earlier
you know?
this year. I don't know if it was before or after kind of the big thing of COVID, but I'm pretty sure
there was some before, for sure.
Yeah.
And then we just continued it on and being like, this is amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I'm so grateful to do it with my sister. Like, she's an incredible human. If you guys don't, like, on TikTok, she is doing wonderful. Like, she has videos that go viral, and it's always about social justice issues. Sometimes she's just speaking her mind, and then it'll just take off, and there'll be, like, 2 million views, and she won't talk about this, and I just need to hype her up a little because she deserves it. I mean, even your friend that came in here was just like, your sister's hilarious, by the way. I'm like, she just needs to know this, right? So I'm like, that's the one thing I get to do with her and be part of is like, we get to do our YouTube, right? Because I'm in the finance world, she's in the activism world. We are so completely different, like, but we have like these underlying things
like that
we really care
values.
Exactly, that we care about. And we were like, who are we if we just portray that one side of us, right? We gotta like have this realm of topics that we want to explore, because we were just having these conversations all the time anyway. Like, we were just literally on Friday night, we're like, this should be recorded. We could be like explaining this to people, and this is important. I don't think a lot of people have these perspectives, and I don't think a lot of young brown women talk about these kinds of things.
Absolutely.
So let's do that, and we're here, and I'm so grateful for it. So
I mean, here's hoping that there's an Umber and Afsha like podcast, because that would be really
cool. So that's something that we just released. So we actually take a lot of So when we were like explaining the camera to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I have a mic. So we have our own podcast. Okay. Yes, and
that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. It's Umber and Afsha, and we're on Spotify and Apple, wherever.
You guys are already on there.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'll be sure to link that too.
Yes,
because that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the podcast medium, obviously.
The podcast medium is amazing because that's what I I use. I don't use YouTube. I didn't even know YouTubers were a thing. Like, I'm like millions of users, you know, but podcast, right? And that's very naive of me, but I'm on it. So
well, and I think that speaks to the growing and evolving and being always willing to learn
and seeing what's out there, right?
Yeah.
Like if in the beginning, like 10 years ago, if someone was like, you'd have a YouTube, that would be something that people are embarrassed by. Like TikTok is something people are embarrassed by, and I'm just like,
it's changed dramatically.
People have an opinion on everything you do, and there's still people who think like we did 10 years ago. So YouTube is something I'm so excited about, and we do have a podcast. So anyone listening to this, check it out. Like we take a lot of our YouTubes and we make it into podcasts, and we're also just gonna have like conversations just that we have naturally, not like none of it's posed. We just speak our minds, and it's on our podcast. Yeah,
honestly, even like I know people who they literally just bring their phone with it and will just record a voice note.
Yeah.
Slice them together. That's the podcast.
Mm-hmm. And my sister's the genius or mastermind behind all the editing. I mean, I just get this. I come in, I record, and I leave because I have a business I'm running. But I'm so thankful for her and being able to do that with her. So definitely check out our podcast.
Awesome. So everybody, please make sure to go check out their podcast, their YouTube channel. If people want to follow you on Instagram, if they do want that more financial literacy side of things, where's the best place for everybody to find you?
Everyone can find me on Afsha on the Run. So it's Afsha, AFSHA, on the Run, standard spelling.
Awesome. And that's on Instagram?
Yes, on Instagram.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, there's LinkedIn as well, same name. So it depends if you want the business side of me, the Instagram side of me, whatever you want to learn or you're hoping to pick up on, you can find that on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Awesome. And then is your TikTok linked to your Instagram?
No, my TikTok's linked to my Instagram, but my Instagram's not linked to my TikTok.
Gotcha.
So to find me on TikTok, it's _Afsha.
Okay, sweet. I'll be sure to put all the links in there. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for
I know
coming.
you're a very busy woman, so I'm
glad we got to do this.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming, and enjoy the rest of my city. I don't know how long you're here for.
A couple hours.
Oh, okay, we'll take it in.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And be sure to tune in for more future episodes, and be sure to check out her podcast and her YouTube.
Yes, you won't regret it.
Awesome. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. Hope you've enjoyed it and found it valuable. If you're curious on how to create content like this, or any kind of video content, either for yourself or as a service to others, I want to give you access to my video editing course, Editing Enhanced. This course is designed to help you get better at editing video content and to take your video editing skills to the next level. Whether you're a complete beginner and just need to understand the basics, or you're pretty confident with editing and want to take things up a notch, this course will have lots for you to take advantage of. Now, there may or may not be a discount code in the description and show notes for this episode, so be sure to have a look out for that and head on over to starta.ca/editing enhanced to get access to the course. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you again on the next episode.